Thursday, and welcome to On the Move with Nan and Cam. We got Cam back, and I'm not right in front of the screen, so it's a great Thursday. And today we're joined by Nancy Thomas of InUnison. She is the president and CEO of InUnison, which used to be known as the Retail Merchants Association. So Nancy, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. And yes, happy almost weekend.
Yes, very exciting. We call this sometimes at my house. My mother-in-law also calls it Little Friday.
Friday Junior. I love that.
And you've called it Friday Junior. Yeah. I like Friday Junior.
I love it. I just got an email last week when I said Happy Friday to someone, and someone responded back and said, Happy Yay Day.
Yay Day. Like that is a good one.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I had never seen that one before, so I'm gonna have to steal that one.
I need to get more creative with my sign-offs when it comes to the weekend.
I like that. I thought you were just going to say I need to get more creative, and I was like, I'm not sure you can.
when it comes to my sign-offs, I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I get bored of the emails I'm sending, so that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is a good idea. If I get any more, I'll send them your way, Cam.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And Nancy is here to tell us about a super awesome personal feat that she accomplished recently. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and your love of being active and how that started.
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I'm very appreciative. And also, I love it that you guys do this all the time. I think it's
very fun. We can't believe they let us do it.
Right.
But...
Well, I'm sure you make it fun. And anyway, so thank you. So, yeah, I mean, I'll just get right to the love of an active lifestyle. I come from a very large family. I have 5 brothers and a sister, born and raised in New York on the island. And, my parents were both very athletic. My brothers and sisters are really athletic. And my parents, there was no sitting around. If you weren't doing chores, you were outside figuring out what to do or how to play. And so, as soon as we could ride our bikes, we were riding our bikes to our swim practices or, softball or baseball or, whatever. And so there wasn't a lot of sitting around in the Carey household. We all grew up. And so, with 7 kids, you had your own kickball teams and, all that. Right. So, and we also grew up on a block where, everybody had a lot of kids. And so you just had built-in teammates and friends all the time.
That's so cool.
I think I was talking about this with a friend that has a 3-year-old recently. And I feel like that makes me sad because I feel like that is gone. Yeah, I grew up kind of the same way. We weren't as active, but I remember from the ages of 8 to 14 being on my street, out there. I had my parents got me a walkie-talkie and I was out there and you would be riding bikes, rollerblading, riding your scooter, playing baseball, anything. And you wouldn't be coming home until your dinner time. So
yeah, exactly.
So fun.
And you didn't have to go far. I mean, literally, I'm thinking about our street, and it's we didn't have to go far because you just stayed on the block.
It's so funny, too, because, now when I go to my parents' house and I see a bunch of kids playing outside, I'm like, yay! Yeah. Great job, everybody! Just because you don't see it often. You don't see, a bunch of kids playing outside anymore. So I'm like, oh, that's you can ride your bike in front of me. I don't care. I'll wait. It's fine.
There was no TV watching. There was no, really. We just, and in our backyard, we had a basketball hoop attached to the garage, and we had the hopscotch painted on the cement. And so, you kind of just, you had to figure it out. And then when we were all old enough, at the age of 10 or 11, we were either delivering papers or babysitting or cleaning houses. I mean, so, it's just always busy. I can remember we would ride our bikes to our swim team practice. It started at 7:30 in the morning. And now that I think about it, I'm like, what were we thinking? It would probably be about 4 miles, and we would cross over not 1, but 2 very busy streets that looked like Broad Street, 4 lanes, 2 lanes.
Oh my God,
crazy.
And there was no bike paths. There was no helmets. There was no.
My mom would pass out. Oh my gosh.
And I think about us doing that every single month crossover railroad tracks because they weren't raised yet. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then we stayed at the pool all day long.
I'm doing that now, but I was going to say, how did that translate? So you grew up being really active, and that was something that your parents instilled in you. But how did that translate as you became an adult? Because then obviously you've got, I think a lot of people get bogged down in their day to day, and it has to become much more intentional than just going outside and playing. So what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty active all my life. I played volleyball at VCU when I came down here. So working out or just being active, it was kind of in the DNA. And so to this day, I love long walks. I don't really run anymore. I mean, I used to, but I don't. And just really being intentional about it. And it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I got to go work out today. I mean, it could be just, just go for a long walk somewhere.
Yeah.
Or just, do a little bit of strength training for 10 minutes. And so I just, it's just part of my life. And I've always been like that. And the same thing with my brothers and sisters. I think about all of them today, and they're all active. Everybody's active, either riding bikes. I love riding bikes too. I love the Cap Trail. I live in Verina. And so I just have to go through Battlefield Park to get onto the Cap Trail. And I love doing a 25 mile ride. And yeah, so it's fun. And I'm comfortable doing it by myself.
Yeah. Which is huge. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that is a lot of the battle for some people, is like, they don't feel comfortable enough to go to the gym or to do things by themselves. So they just are like sitting at home. And I'm like, I don't know.
You're not going to, you won't get comfortable if you don't go do it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And
so for our listeners, Nancy hiked El Camino. Can you tell us a little about what El Camino is, and then how you even got the idea to do that?
So it's called the Camino de Santiago, and there's several Caminos that you can do, but most of the time people start with the original one, which starts in Saint-Jean, France, and goes through over the Pyrenees and then through Spain. And it's about a 517-mile journey or pilgrimage. And I had never heard about it until a good, very, very dear friend of mine, she did it in 23. And I was fascinated by it. And like I said, I had never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And so when she got back, I spent hours just talking to her. I was so inspired, and I decided, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it by myself.
Yeah.
And she did it by herself as well. And so it was, she just was so inspiring. And it's one of those things that you can talk about it and really get surface level understanding of what it is. But until you do it, it's really a pretty amazing journey. And I'm just so happy I did it. I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah. What was the prep like for it?
Oh, it's intense. I mean, for me, it was intense because I had never taken that in my 45 years of working. I have never taken more than 10 days off in a row. So I was I left on September 11th. I returned on October 19th. And so I walked 35 straight days.
Oh my goodness.
And
how many miles a day was that?
I averaged 15.
Okay.
There were some days where it was 18, 19, and there were some days it might have been, 11 or 12, but there were more of the higher numbers than there were the lower.
Yeah.
And so the prep, Cam, was pretty intense because my family, my brothers were like, so who are you going with? No one. No. Like, what's the group called? What's the tour thing? And I was like, no, there's no tour. There's nobody else going. And so they all had a little bit of a hard time with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just from a safety standpoint. But I think the Camino is known to be safe because there's so many pilgrims traveling on the paths that you're never quite alone. I was alone on a couple of areas, but I never really, there was one time I felt a little apprehensive, but for the most part, it was really very well traveled. And so, safety really isn't that much of an issue. Now you shouldn't take that lightly, right? And
Right.
you want to make sure that you're prepared but I, and my family also is, where are you going to stay? And so I did make reservations every single night. And the really ironic thing is that most people don't.
Huh.
Yeah.
Do they just walk in or do they camp?
They just walk into the city.
Okay.
And they try and find a hostel or albergue or a municipale, the public places that just had scans of bunk beds. And all the places I stayed in rooms with, it was male, female. We were on bunk beds most of the time, maybe 2 showers, everyone had to take. So I made sure that I did make reservations every night, which was intense. That was hard.
Yeah.
Just trying to do that from afar, and a lot of times people didn't speak speak English, and so you were translating a lot. But in a few days it didn't work out. For some reason, my reservation got lost, and I had nowhere to stay. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. And so can you imagine walking into a town and not knowing where, but it was so common, and it wasn't just young men and women, it was people my age. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And they would say, and they would laugh at my spreadsheet. I mean, I would show them my spreadsheet on the phone and say, and they're like, so people got into the habit of saying, hey, where are you staying tonight? So I can call them.
Right, to make sure.
So it was really, that was really fascinating to me. And like I said, it was all ages. They would just, and then if they couldn't find somewhere to stay, they might have just walked 15, 16, 17 miles. They just keep walking.
I was thinking that. I was like,
like through the night, they would just go?
Well, they would go to the next town.
Okay.
So, luckily over the years, there are these wonderful apps that have been created for the Camino. And so very, very well formatted apps where you can see exactly how many kilometers that you're going to walk that day, where the towns are, how many miles in between. So it was, who had cafes, who didn't. So you really were able to kind of look at it and say, okay, if I don't get a place here, I know I need to walk 4 or 5 more miles, which doesn't sound like a lot, particularly to sports backers people.
No, I thought it sounded like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a lot if you've just walked 18 miles.
And I was thinking that, like, finally walking 18 miles and then it's the end of the day and it's like, ooh, let me go rest. And they're like, can't rest here.
Yeah.
What? Now I gotta walk 5 more miles after my whole day of walking?
And it's not the Capitol Trail. It's like mountainous, sometimes like trail terrain. Yeah.
Yeah, man, exactly. I mean, that was the other thing is what I wasn't prepared for was how rocky.
Okay.
And a lot of the incline. I mean, I knew about the Pyrenees Mountains, right? I mean, climbing over that was, but believe it or not, that's kind of the start of the path. And so over the years, they've made the paths pretty nice.
Okay.
But there were others. There's another one right after the Pyrenees that's called the Dragon Rocks. And they are literally
foreboding.
They really look like the back of a dragon because the rocks are just pointed straight up. And this went on for miles. And
so are you like scooting more than?
Yeah, you're scooting. You're trying not to fall. You're trying to figure out, where do I put my pole so I don't. And then you have a backpack on your back.
Yeah.
So there were. So it was both mentally and physically challenging.
For sure.
But then there were lovely paths too. Weren't as challenging.
How much did your pack weigh?
Well, Cam, you asked about prep. I thought I did a good prep, and my friend helped me and all that. But it's amazing how 1 ounce, 2 ounces, 6 ounces makes a difference. My pack, when I started, was 26 pounds. Now that doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't, but for a long walk.
But when you're walking over the Pyrenees,
and you're tired.
Heavy. I mean, I had brought homemade granola because, I thought that would be good to snack on. I gave that all away by day 2.
You're like, never mind, please.
I'm like, here, you want some granola? I mean, I literally would
You're
be
popular on the trail that day. Yeah.
And and then I developed my hips because the bag was so heavy that I developed, my hips were all bruised. And
Oof.
so making sure the pack is on you correctly so that the weight is off, off your back, and it sits on your hips.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was, all these ins and outs that my friend taught me before I went. And I did walk many, many, many miles, through, I get on the Cap Trail, or I would go find really hilly areas and just load my backpack up with books, hard-covered books, to kind of get the. So anyway, it was. If I know, and I know a few people who are thinking about doing it, I would really spend a lot of time with them, making them understand how important and how few items you really need.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I overpacked.
I mean, I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible overpacker to the extreme. And I'm also tired of my event day backpack on me at the end of working, which has my car keys, my gloves and my snips and that's like it. But I'm like over that at the end of the day. I can't imagine.
Get it off. Yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah, that is wild. What seemed to be like the most daunting? You mentioned this a little bit, but what was most daunting to you ahead of time, and then what actually ended up being the hardest part?
Mm-hmm. Daunting is an interesting word, right? Because it's like what intimidated you, and my whole purpose. Like people would say, "Why are you doing this?" And my whole thought process was, I wanted to be uncomfortable. I wanted to, do something that made me a little uncomfortable, because I feel like that's true personal growth.
Right.
And I've traveled by myself for years. In my earlier career, I was on the road 75, 80% of the time throughout the United States. And so I'd be in 3 cities in 1 week. But the difference was I knew I was most likely going to meet someone affiliated with what I was doing at the other end.
Right.
This was not like that.
Right.
So it was just having a level of being uncomfortable, really truly traveling by yourself in a foreign country. So that, you can call it daunting. You can call it just, that was part of my growth. Right?
Yeah.
But I think, there were daunting days. I'm not going to say, oh, it was all great. I mean, there were days, and one in particular that just broke me. I mean, I had just traveled over another mountain range, and it was an 18-mile day on itself. And somehow I got turned around and I couldn't find my albergue. And so I wound up walking like 22 miles.
Oh,
and it was getting dark, and it was, and I finally got to where I was, and this friend from Belfast was also at this albergue, and I walked into this room, with guys and gals, mainly guys, and I just sat there and I just broke, I just was like, oh my gosh. But everybody is so kind. The pilgrim camaraderie is something that you cannot describe. You have to experience it. The kindness of strangers is just incredible. And, I might have seen, KMU for coffee, or started out walking with you, and then all of a sudden we'd pick Nan up because, we met her 3 days ago, and then I wouldn't see you for 10 days, and the reuniting and just, knowing people on the way and hearing their stories. So, the daunting part was really just probably, you're traveling by yourself. Luckily, most people speak English. I did try and teach myself Spanish. I was doing really well until I had to speak Spanish. I was like, wow, I really don't know what the hell I'm doing.
You're like, I got it. And okay, say a sentence. Can't.
So, it was just different, You're not, you're traveling by yourself. It's you and your backpack. And what you also could do, and I did, because my hips were so sore I could hardly wear the backpack. You could send your pack ahead. They had that service where you could send your pack ahead, and then I also had like a smaller backpack within the backpack, and that was a lifesaver for me.
Yeah.
So that really helped me out a lot. And then I was trying to shed some of the weight, but I could never get to the next destination in time to go to a post office and box it up and get it out, So, there's always.
There was no 5 p.m. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when they take their siestas, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done. And so.
Do people take siestas on the trail? No.
Well, you just go into a city and everything would be shut down by 2:00, and, they would reopen. Some would reopen by 5, but not many. And so, it was a big timing thing. And you didn't want to carry a lot of food because that just added weight.
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing for me was water. I carried 2 16-ounce bottles of water every day, and that still wasn't enough.
Yeah. I was going to say we're spoiled here. I'm taking down this 40-ounce bottle of water all the time. I would be like, too, but you have to, you can't carry that.
No.
It would just be
no water fountains.
No, it would be way too much. When you were talking about the kindness of people, I can't imagine what it's like to it kind of reminds me of our events, but to meet all these people that have this common goal. So that you have that in common with each other, but your motivations for doing it have got to be so different all over the place. Cause also, like you said, there's people of all ages. But that's really interesting. I love hearing it's, I think it's cool anytime we get a reminder that people are good and that there's, that they want to help each other is always, I think we hear the opposite so often. So
that's right.
Really nice.
That's exactly right. And people were there for different reasons. People were there dealing with loss or suffering, or a lot of young men and women were just not finding purpose in their jobs. And they quit their jobs and they would just do the Camino. And they said, I just want space to figure out what I need to do. And so those were fascinating to talk to them. And that was really my favorite part. And one of my goals was to just meet people from all over the world and hear their stories.
Yeah.
And you had plenty of time to do that. Because
that's what I was about to say. You have plenty of time, and if you're by yourself, you have plenty of time to think. And if they're soul searching and they're trying to figure out what their purpose is or what they should do next in their life, that's a lot of time to be alone in your own thoughts and to be thinking the whole time. I know that would be me. I feel like a lot of the time when I'm doing harder exercise, I try to think of something else. Especially we went to a cycling class together and I was just trying to sing the song because I was like, this is hard. And I was like, I know this song, I'm just going to sing it. But I feel like that is if that's what you're there to do, you have plenty of time to think.
Yeah. And I purposely, I walked with lots of wonderful, wonderful people. It was so nice. And the same people sometimes day after day, right? But I purposely wanted to walk by myself.
Right.
I did that a fair amount, and I was happy I did that because that to me is when you really have the space and time to think. And I was very big on stopping and taking pictures. And if I saw animals, I would just, the animals just gave me such peace, and their eyes, you could look in their eyes and just.
It would have been your favorite.
I know. I was just about to ask what variety of animals, what was the most exciting? I love some wildlife spotting.
Yeah, there are lots of cows, and particularly going over the Pyrenees, they were literally walking right by you. It was hilarious.
That's cool. Yeah.
Horses, dogs and cats everywhere.
Really?
And the dogs were so friendly. It wasn't like any of them were, they would just be laying around and they would just look up at you like, hey, and the cat. Yeah. So it's the typical little animals, big animals, goats, just, and through the Pyrenees, it was amazing to see the sheep and goats traveling together,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was fascinating to watch, and there wasn't any shepherd or anything. There might've been a dog, but they were just in line. If you weren't moving, you got past. There was a lead, and it was really amazing. Just animals and how smart and how they all have a process.
Yeah. That always amazes me is they don't have a language, they don't talk to each other, but they all know what to do. Every time I see National Geographic stuff, I'm like, how are they all doing that? It is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
What was your favorite experience? Because I feel like that could be one of them, but what was your favorite experience along the whole thing?
There was really so many, but there was one in particular. I was by myself and I was just walking and walking, and all of a sudden I heard this music, this singing, and it was Sunday, and so obviously people were going to mass, and really just every single city, no matter how big or small, and mainly they were small, had obviously a church. And so the whole idea of the Camino is your endpoint is supposed to be kind of around the church, right? And so I went off track. I just said, where is that coming from? It was so beautiful, you know? And so I kind of went off path, and there was a church and people were coming out of church. And so, but I could still hear some singing. And so I went in, and there was this small group of women, and I think there was one man, and they were literally just sitting there after mass. And I guess they were the choir, so to speak. And I guess they were practicing. And so I just sat there and waited because I wanted to hear them sing.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And so I got up and I just walked over to them and I said in my very broken English, how beautiful their voices were. And they were so excited, and they were like, wait, don't go. And I said, okay. And they looked at each other and they were looking in their hymnal books, and then they just sang the most beautiful song for me.
That's so cried. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, it's just like what a chance encounter, because if you would have come any other time, you wouldn't have gotten to see that.
Right.
And I sat there and I videotaped it because I wanted to always remember that.
Yeah.
And after I finished, I thanked them, and then they were asking me where I was from and all that, and then I played back the video for them, and they couldn't believe it because obviously probably no one had ever done that for them.
Yeah.
And they couldn't believe, and they looked at each other and they smiled, and they were like, is that us? That you could tell they were like, and that was such a blessing and just such an emotional, like, wow, the simple things in life.
Yeah. Like so much of what we do on the daily doesn't cater to human connection because you're so on to the next thing that the slowing down is just really cool.
Yeah. And to see their smiles and realizing that that was their beautiful voices was just such a gift that day.
I was also going to ask if because I feel like I ask everybody this who
I know exactly what you're going to ask.
Were you listening to music throughout the whole?
I'm glad you asked that. I really am, because I purposely did not put headphones or AirPods on one time. And I was very intentional about that. I brought them just in case I needed them for oh my God, the snoring in those bunk bedrooms.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought about that. But yeah, I can hardly handle just sleeping with one person in my room. I can't imagine like 6.
But Cam, I did not one time did I put those AirPods in, not once.
I love that.
And
yeah, that's amazing.
Didn't want to. I wanted to hear what was going on. I wanted to be intentional about listening to the birds or animals or whatever, or water that you might encounter.
Right.
And so I didn't at all. And even in the boring parts, there's a section of the Camino that's more industrial, so you're literally walking right by a highway. And so it's very boring. It's very, but even with that, people are so appreciative of what the economic impact has done for those small towns with these pilgrims coming in, that, the truckers would just beep their horn every time they'd see pilgrims and wave. And so it's like, if you had headphones or AirPods, you would miss that.
You're missing it. Yeah.
And so you really, for me, it was really about a total body, emotional, hearing, seeing, feeling experience.
Yeah, I even think that sometimes and I am guilty. I wear my headphones like 95% of the time, but when I walk in my neighborhood, because that's like a huge calming peace thing for me, like walking outside, and this time of year, I love the sound of cicadas, and I'm always like, why do I I'm like, I got to take these headphones out more often. Like in the times where I'm doing a quick walk or just decide not to have them, I'm like, the sounds are just as peaceful as the sights, and like is being out there. And I'm like, I so often I remove one of those senses that it's like, I should do that more often.
Yeah. It's just being, I know this is an overused statement. It's just being present, right? And being comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So
what was the weather like normally?
The weather, again, I don't like to be cold. And so people made fun of me because, I did bring like a vest, a puffy vest, but again, you got to be careful. You can't.
Can't
I brought a hat and I brought gloves, and guess what? Thank God I did, because there were days where it was 36 degrees.
Yeah, you need that.
And going over the Pyrenees, there's this one section where, I had a hat on, I had my gloves, and some people were making fun of me. And all of a sudden, it was terrible to watch them because their poor hands were just cold. And I would say, you want one glove, but I was so happy to have that, because in the morning, sometimes it would be as low as 36. We'd be in the, 40s, 50s. And then as the day went on, it would get nicer and you could, peel off. But I was really happy that I did bring those. So overall, the weather was nice. And, the other thing that you got to learn to do is walk in the rain.
Yeah. You're not stopping because it's a stretch of rain.
Yeah. Like, let me take a break.
Because you got to get to your destination. And so, and that's the one thing, is that you just have to have a really good, waterproof, coat, raincoat.
Yeah.
But even walking in the rain was a learning experience, because most people, you think about us and you're like, oh, let's go for a walk. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's going to rain, cancel.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, no, you can't do that.
No. Yeah, it might be beat down raining and you can't do that.
Right. But yeah, the kindness of strangers, was incredible. And the camaraderie from the pilgrim, and my daughter came over at the 90-mile mark.
Oh, that's cool.
And she walked into Santiago with me. And that was really great. I was so yearning for home. And, and so that was really special. And then some friends were over doing the Porta Camino. There's all different kinds of Caminos. And they too, like on, 2 or 3 days before I went to Santiago, that was the plan. We were all going to meet up and walk in together.
Oh, that's great.
That is really great.
So that was really fun.
Yeah. Are you in contact with any of the people still that you met while you were out there?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody had we use WhatsApp, and we just, and to this day, every once in a while, you just something will pop up or, and everybody got to Santiago at different times. And so that too, people would have gotten there a day or two ahead, and they were like, where are you? We want to be here. They'd be waiting there for you, like all day to,
so nice.
just embrace the moment. And so that was really, really special too. And so, still talking to friends all over the place. Everywhere, South Korea, Ireland, Australia, Canada. It's just all over the place, Thailand. So,
that's wild. Yeah.
Cyprus. And I do want to share a quote from this young man that my kids put together a book for me, and
that's nice. Yeah.
It was really, really lovely. And they just kind of, I don't know, they must have confiscated my phone when I wasn't looking, and they just went through the pictures, and they did such a lovely job. And, he, his name was Ilias, and he was one that just quit his job. He was an accountant, and he just said, I don't like it. And so we didn't walk a lot together, but it was interesting. All of a sudden we'd land up in the same city, and he'd be with a group eating, or and that's how it was. It was just so lovely. But he said to me when I made it, we were congratulating each other on making it to the Camino, because he was a few days after me. And I said, please send me pictures and all that. And then at the end, he said, our Camino is formed by the people we meet. And I am so pleased and lucky to meet you. He said, I hope you found what you were looking for, and the Camino brought what you needed. And then in parentheses, he wrote, not always what we want.
That's so nice.
And I thought to myself, how incredibly wise.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? It's not what you need. Maybe it gave you what you needed, but sometimes not what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just
And that's
thought,
like our expectations on things. Like it's just, and you don't get to choose. That's really beautiful.
no. And so I think, and I'm a big fan of this saying that I learned many years ago is, yesterday is gone, today is a gift, and tomorrow is a mystery. And I think we all need to be comfortable with not worrying about what the day is going to bring us.
Right.
Yeah.
And to have the strength. So I just, and I'm really grateful to the both of you for pushing me to do this. Because
Well, thanks. We're so glad you wanted to do it. This has honestly been just like, I'm riveted by this. Yeah.
and just embracing not what you know, but just what is the gift today, and don't worry about tomorrow, and as I walked and I was like, okay, so what if my reservation gets screwed up? I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And I really left all that and just walked in the day, and just listening to people's stories, and again, the kindness, it was just really unbelievable.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is like thinking about doing something big like this themselves, whether it's, the El Camino, or whether it's, they're thinking about going on their first solo trip or running a marathon or anything that is kind of changing their life?
Yeah, exactly. Like running a marathon. I remember when I did my first marathon many, many, many years ago, and I was scared.
Yeah.
I think, it's okay. I was like, it's okay to be scared or apprehensive, but just deal with it, right? And don't let that get in the way. But I would say, do it for the right reasons. Do it for you. Don't do it for someone else. Just do it for you, and just really embrace the time, and have a purpose. My purpose was to get out of my, be uncomfortable, and figure things out, and meet people from all around the world, and to have peace and quiet, to think and to pray and to just reflect. And so I think, just have a purpose in why you're going, address any kind of, fears or apprehensions, but do it. Just go ahead and push yourself to do it. And from a logistics standpoint, really think about preparation. And, if I were to do this all over, I mean, that backpack would look completely different, and, and I had really good help, but I kind of over prepared, It's like, how many Band-Aids do you need? And how many, it's just.
I would have such a hard time.
Me too.
And the preparation,
I don't even know how to
and I will tell you though, the biggest thing was blisters on people's feet. And I don't care how many miles you walk or run, that kind of journey is very, very mentally, physically challenging. And so everybody was up by 6 a.m. and the first thing you did was you took care of your feet.
Oof.
And you made sure that, and I want to tell you, the injuries that I saw were just scary.
And they had to keep going.
Yeah. I was going to say, it doesn't matter if you don't have any toenails or.
No, I lost 4. And so, and
you're still going.
Yeah. I mean, every morning I would get up and I would Vaseline down my feet every single morning. And then luckily I did get a blister or two, but nothing like other people. I mean, you just powered through it.
Yeah. That's wild.
So, yeah. So, and I think, your question around what advice, like I said, just do this for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's, otherwise, I feel like if you're doing it for any other reason, you're not going to make it. Like it's so like we're talking about it, it's so intense that like you have to do it for you.
Yeah. And back to the headphones, I mean, I'm a big believer in omens and what symbols and signs are out there. And so that was the other beautiful thing, just you would see something on the ground that someone built with rocks, and it was just, and I think you miss that sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're preoccupied.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of have to, there has to be something that you're looking towards or like looking forward to seeing, or like any sign. I feel like I'm the same way. Like if I see something and I'm like, oh, that's a sign. Like I'm just like, oh, that it's a sign. Like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I feel like that definitely helps when you're doing something that difficult.
Have you read The Alchemist, Cam?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
It's a great book.
Maybe
I'm a big reader. Cam's also a reader.
Yeah, I've been reading.
I would highly recommend. It's not a, maybe it's very, very short, but it's by Paulo Coelho, I believe. It's just The Alchemist. It's my favorite book.
Okay,
and I've read it
on my TBR.
Love a good book rec.
Huh?
Said love a good book recommendation. This is great.
But, it talks about omens and how we should pay attention to them in life, and they are signs.
Yeah. Well, that's on my list now.
Yeah. This was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to your hard part now. Your this or that questions.
Oh.
Which
hold on, let me sit up straight.
They may be hiking themed. We don't talk about them before, so they might be hiking themed. They might not be.
Right.
I have one. Do you want me to go, or do you have one?
I have one, but it's probably going to be the same one.
We tend to have the same brain and not communicate and think of the exact same thing.
Okay.
So I was thinking during this, what were you most excited about when you would get into town? Were you more excited about a warm shower or a good meal?
Oh yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to tell you about the meals.
I want to hear about the meals.
Yeah,
Big
but anyway,
that's
important.
It was getting on a bottom bunk.
Yeah, okay. It was neither. It was a lay down. Get off your feet.
And it was just like, the bunk beds weren't all that great, and so it's like, oh God, and so and a shower.
Yeah. Okay. I bet. What was the meal situation
like? So the other thing I would highly recommend to someone is take advantage of what we call the pilgrim dinners, and a lot of the albergues would offer and you pay a little bit more, but it was very inexpensive to have a pilgrim dinner, and all people from other albergues or in that albergue would just be together, and they would cook this beautiful meal. And it was a wonderful meal, it was always a soup and a salad and a main meal and a dessert, but you were together, and it was just another opportunity to meet other people. And because it can get lonely, and even though you might be walking with people, but so that was really, really a wonderful recommendation from my friend Lynn, and I took advantage of those.
Also, like your dinner conversation built in, you're all doing the same thing, so it's super easy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And again, just a time to kind of watch people and see, and so that was really great.
So we did not have the same one.
Okay, good.
My this or that was, do you prefer, and it doesn't have to be related to your hike there, but like any hike in the mountains, do you prefer hiking on a trail in the mountains / woods, or the Capitol Trail that you like to be on?
I do prefer being in the mountains, and
nice.
Yeah, and just being challenged, and there's something about being encapsulated with nature in the woods, and that gives me peace.
Right.
Yeah. Thinking about potential backpack snacks that you maybe had, or just the on the go type thing. Are you more of, granola trail mix, or like a energy block gummy bear situation?
Probably more on the granola, trail mix. And, the bread, I mean, people would literally have loaves of bread on the back of their backpack.
I love that. Me.
And, their bread is made with refined flour. And so even if you had a gluten problem, it wasn't as high of a problem, because their breads were beautiful and just so delicious. And so it was a lot of bread and cheese.
Talking our language now.
So
I will walk for bread and cheese.
Yeah, I definitely would walk for bread and cheese. And yeah, that was really great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I think it's just really special to hear from somebody who took so much, time for themselves, because people just don't do that. And to see how beneficial it was is just really awesome. So I'm not doubting that you are going to inspire a lot of people to think more about that, and despite, what their journey might be. But thanks a ton.
Well, thank you all for encouraging me to do this. I really appreciate it, because it gave me such joy to go through this book, and I went through some pictures, and I really wanted to reflect on, what was important to me. So thanks for pulling that out of me.
Of course. Yeah. And we got this sneak peek into thinking that this would be a good story, because Nancy is a mentor for one of our coworkers, Jackie, and she had heard about it. And then luckily Jackie came and thought it was so cool, told us. So we're thankful to Jackie too.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah.
I wasn't thanking her a month ago, but I'm thanking her now.
I can't wait. I forgot to tell her that we were doing it today, so I can't wait to go downstairs and tell her. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. I love working with you, and I hope to see you both soon.
Sounds great. Bye. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.